Ma'am, is there any reason at all that you can state for me why you wouldn't be fair and impartial in the trial of this matter?
No.
Thank you. Would you take a step back for us, please?
Ma'am?
I find that this juror stands indifferent. Commonwealth?
Your Honor, the Commonwealth would challenge juror number 4.
Okay.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth has now challenged 2 African Americans, and I move you disallow this peremptory.
Okay, counsel, I do note a pattern here. 2 of the 4 challenges that the Commonwealth has used have in fact been of minority jurors. Defense, I find, has made a prima facie showing overcoming the presumption of regularity in the use of peremptory challenges. Therefore, I'll hear from you. As you know, the burden now shifts to you to show a legitimate reason for the use of such a challenge.
Yes, and Your Honor, the Commonwealth does have a legitimate reason for challenging this juror that has nothing to do with race.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, when the clerk was reading the indictment and when Your Honor was giving his preliminary instructions to the jury pool, I noticed this juror was making faces, she was rolling her eyes, and seemed just not want to be here, Your Honor. For the record, Your Honor, I struck jurors numbers 2 and 3, were both white jurors, for precisely the same reason. Your Honor may have noted that they as well, where one of them was shrugging his shoulders, he was making noises, the other was rolling his eyes. They evinced an intent, or rather a desire, not to be here, Your Honor. And the Commonwealth moves to strike this juror for precisely the same reason. Again, Your Honor, this has nothing to do with race and everything to do with this juror's actions and conduct and demeanor. It's unique and specific to this juror.
All right, thank you. Counsel, I'll hear from you.
Your Honor, I don't know about the court, but I made no such observations. I suggest this flimsy excuse has just come up lately. Perhaps if the prosecutor had alerted the court that both white and African-American jurors were acting this way, his peremptory might be more believable.
Well, Your Honor, there was no reason for me to articulate reasons for challenges of jurors number 2 and 3 because there was no objection to them, first of all. Secondly, Your Honor, I would also note that the jury pool, as you can notice, has several persons of color on it, so it is highly likely that the next selected jurors, or that some of the jurors who sit on this pool, will be persons of color. And again, Your Honor, this has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with this juror's demeanor and actions, and again, it's entirely consistent with the reasons why I struck jurors 2 and 3.
Thank you both. For the reasons stated, I am going to credit the stated basis for your challenge. You were clear in your explanation, you were reasonably specific, and you gave reasons that were personal to this individual juror and not based on her group affiliation. Therefore, the reason stated is adequate. However, in our case law, as you know, this is not this particular reason, that of facial movements and or facial expressions and bodily movements, etc. It's not an area that's favored as a basis for a peremptory challenge. The reason is that this can be used as a pretext to challenge somebody for a race-based reason. Nevertheless, for the reasons you gave me and based on my finding that I just made, I'll find that it's an adequate showing you've made. With regard to the credibility or the genuineness of your stated reason, because you have made a basis or you have made a showing that you've in fact challenged 2 white jurors for virtually the same reason, which I have verified, I'm going to find that you're credible in your articulation and therefore genuine, and the objection is overruled.
Thank you.
Please note my objection, Judge.
I will. Juror is excused. Gentlemen, I find this juror stands indifferent. Ma'am, you can take a step back. I'd like to speak to the lawyers for a moment.
Sure.
Okay, it's the Commonwealth's turn to exercise a peremptory if they care to.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth moves to challenge juror 4-4.
Okay.
Your Honor, the defendant would object to the exercise of the peremptory challenge by the government of that juror. The record should reflect that she's an African-American female. There are few, if any, other African-Americans remaining in this jury pool. I'm very concerned that in this shooting case, where the alleged victim is white, that racial bias may pervade this case, and I suggest Your Honor should not allow this challenge by the government.
Sir, I'm going to find that defense counsel has made a showing of a prima facie case for an improper use of peremptory challenge. As you know, under our case law, the challenge of one person of color could constitute a pattern, and the burden here is not a terribly weighty one. So I'm going to give you a chance to explain the use of this challenge, Mr. Prosecutor.
Your Honor, first of all, I would note for the record that there is a person of color presently on the jury. There's a Latino American sitting on the jury. And more importantly, Your Honor, this challenge has nothing to do with race. The Commonwealth already used 3 peremptory challenges to strike 3 jurors because of their age, Your Honor. All 3, you'll note, Your Honor, appear to be under the age of 25, and I believe 2 of them were teenagers. This juror, Your Honor, similarly, is 20 years old according to her jury questionnaire. This is a serious shooting case, Your Honor, with very sensitive facts, and it's the Commonwealth's position that we want people with more real-life experience, significantly more maturity, to judge this case. And the reason that I've made this challenge, Your Honor, again, has nothing to do with race. It's about striking this person because of her age, frankly. We don't want this much youth sitting on this case.
Does defense counsel wish to be heard further?
Your Honor, if this juror is struck, my client, Judge, may end up with an all-white jury, and I don't think that would fairly reflect the racial composition of Suffolk County. He's entitled to a jury of his peers, Judge. Suggested reason by the Commonwealth is somewhat flimsy.
Well, I'll note your ongoing objection, but I find that the articulated basis for the use of the challenge was, in fact, adequate. It's not based on a group affiliation. We're not talking about national origin, race, creed, color, etc. We're talking about age. It's specific to this juror. It's consistent with the prior use of the peremptory challenges for non-minority jurors. And in addition, I find that it is a credible use of the challenge for the reasons articulated, and therefore it's not being asserted as a pretext for a race-related challenge. So I'm going to find that the reason stated is not only adequate under our case law, but it's genuine. Therefore, I'm going to overrule the objection.
Please note my objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Noted. Ma'am, there's one final question I have to ask you. Is there any other reason you'd like to bring to my attention from which I could find that you wouldn't be a fair and impartial juror?
No.
Thank you. Could you take a step back for me, please?
Yeah.
It's defense counsel's turn to use a peremptory if he wants to.
Defendant would challenge this juror, Judge.
I see.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth objects to the use of that challenge.
All right, I'll hear from you, counsel.
Well, Your Honor, this is a case in which the defendant in this case is Caucasian, and the arresting police officer, in fact, the Commonwealth's sole witness in this case, is Latino American. This prospective juror is Latino American, and I suggest that this is a race-based challenge and it's inappropriate.
On the reasons stated, I find that you have not made a prima facie showing of an improper peremptory challenge. This is defense counsel's first use of a challenge. I don't find a pattern here, and there's a presumption of regularity in the use of such challenges. Therefore, I overrule your objection. The juror is excused. Could we have juror number 11 join us, please?
Sir?
Sir, can you tell me of any reason why you would not stand completely fair and impartial in the trial of this matter?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Could you take a step back, please?
Sir?
I find that juror number 11 stands indifferent.
Defendant challenges juror number 11.
Well, wait, the Commonwealth objects to that challenge, Your Honor.
Okay, I'll hear you, sir.
Well, Your Honor, as previously stated, this is a case in which the defendant in this case is white, and the arresting officer, who is perhaps the sole witness in this entire case, certainly the Commonwealth's sole witness, is Latino American. Defense counsel has now exercised 2 peremptory challenges, and by coincidence, both times it has been of Latino American jurors. I suggest there is a pattern here, and I suggest these are race-based challenges, and I would ask that you disallow this challenge.
In this instance, unlike the previous one, I do conclude that the Commonwealth has made a prima facie showing which overcomes the presumption of regularity in the use of a challenge. This does appear to be a challenge based on a membership in a discrete group, and it's likely so far that he's being excluded solely because of membership in that group. So, counsel, I would turn to you to articulate reasons why you would make such a challenge.
Judge, it is just what, like the prosecutor indicated, it is just a coincidence. I'm not kicking him off the case because he's Latino. Well, look, Judge, he also has a cousin who works at the sheriff's department. So he's going to be the kind of guy who identifies with law enforcement. He's probably talked about these kind of cases with his cousin, and I think he'll be biased.
It may be heard, Your Honor.
All right, I'll give you the last word on this.
Your Honor, I suggest that the reason just proffered by my brother is pretextual. Your Honor conducted a voir dire in this case where you asked all of the prospective jurors whether or not they would be more likely to believe a police officer than a civilian witness. This prospective juror did not answer that question affirmatively. So we've already been through this issue, Your Honor. I suggest once again that there is a pattern here, that these jurors, and this juror in particular, is being excluded specifically because of his race. And again, based on the facts of this case, as I've discussed, I suggest it's particularly inappropriate, and I would ask you to disallow this challenge.
Counsel, you have articulated a reason that is relatively specific and clear, that is his relationship to somebody in law enforcement. I don't find on the facts of this case that is entirely adequate, but I'm also troubled by the credibility of the reason that you put forth, and I do tend to credit the argument of the prosecutor in that this challenge, or your reasons stated for the challenge, lacks genuineness, and therefore I'm going to sustain the objection at this point.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The juror will be seated.
Judge, note my objection. And I'd also ask for an extra peremptory because I think this was an unfair restriction on my client's right to have an unbiased jury.
I'll note your objection, counsel. Let's move on.